Have you ever trusted someone so much you didn't even think to doubt them? Not just your friends, but the people who made you. The people who told you every day that your dreams were important, that you were important? Well, I did. I was that stupid. My name is Sarah. At 18, I had my life meticulously planned. Straight A's in high school? Check. Salutatorian speech delivered? Check. A fat acceptance packet to my dream university, one of the top schools in the country for biomedical engineering. Double check, and the best part? The reason I didn't lay awake sweating about the price tag like so many of my friends? My college fund. My late grandparents, God bless them, worked their whole lives to ensure my future. They'd set up a trust for me, $50,000, exactly. Not enough for a 4-year full ride without some work, but a massive head start. 50,000 reasons why I wouldn't be drowning in debt before my 20s even began. It was my security, my freedom, my ticket to a life they worked so hard to give me. But a few weeks before I was set to leave, my world didn't just crack, it completely shattered. And the people wielding the sledgehammer were my own parents and my older brother, Mark. This is the story of how my family traded my future for a weekend party, and how I took it all back, starting with my brother's bride. This is not just a story, it's the truth about what can happen when family first becomes code for everyone else comes last. So settle in, because this one is going to take a moment. For weeks, my family had been on cloud nine. My brother Mark, 25, was getting married to a woman named Chloe. Chloe was sweet, a bit naive, maybe, but genuinely kind. Mark, on the other hand, Mark has always been the golden child, the charismatic one. He just needs to find his path one. His path usually involved our parents bail him out of some mess or other, but that was just the status quo. His wedding, though, this was his masterpiece. It wasn't just a wedding. It was a destination wedding in a luxury resort in Cabo. An absolute extravaganza. We're talking beachside ceremony, a ballroom that looked like a fairy tale, and enough food and alcohol to feed a small army. The planning had been insane. Every conversation at dinner was about napkin rings, flower arrangements, and the aesthetic. I was happy for him, I guess. I was busy with my own preparation, imagining my first college class, buying textbooks. But then, as the date of my tuition payment crept closer, I went to check the account. The one my dad, being the trusty parent he was, managed. I remember the cold sweat, the way my stomach dropped through the floor, the balance, zero. Not a few cents, not a temporary hold, a perfectly round, empty zero. My $50,000 was gone. It felt like someone had punched me in the throat and left me gasping for air. All I could think was, it's a glitch. It has to be. I practically ran to the kitchen, my heart hammering like a trapped bird. My parents and Mark were sitting there, laughing over some menu choice. When I showed them my phone, the screen still displaying that empty balance, the laughter died instantly. They didn't look surprised, they looked guilty, and then, annoyed, like I was interrupting their party. My dad was the one to speak first. "Sarah, sit down." His voice was too calm. It was a red flag the size of a billboard. "Where's the money?" I could barely get the words out. My voice was just a choked whisper. "Where is the money my grandparents left me?" He took a breath, a long, exasperated one. "We'll talk about this." Look, when we looked at the final cost of Mark's wedding, well, some things were just more expensive than we thought. The wedding, the world felt tilted. I couldn't understand the connection. "We didn't have a choice, Sarah," my mom put in, her face set in that "don't you make a scene" expression. "It's your brother's wedding, his special day. We couldn't just tell him to cancel everything." "So you took all of it?" My brain was finally putting it together, but my heart was still in denial. "Every last penny of my college fund, without even telling me." "You don't understand the pressure," Mark snapped, like I was the problem. "Everything was booked, it would have been a disaster. Don't be so selfish." "Selfish?" I screamed. The dam finally broke. "You stole my entire future to pay for one weekend of a fancy party. You stole my grandparents' last gift to me. My dream, and I'm the selfish one." The next hour was a blur of shouting and tears, mostly mine. My parents' defense was a masterclass in deflection. It was all "we did it for the family," and "your time will come," and most infuriating of all, "you can just take out loans." Like it was that easy. Like debt was a tiny inconvenience I was blowing out of proportion. They didn't see me. They didn't see my betrayal, my terror, my broken trust. They just saw a problem that was messing up their happy narrative. Mark was worse. He acted like I should be grateful my money was being used for his perfect wedding. Like my tuition and future livelihood were just a minor sacrifice on the altar of his happiness. He even had the gall to say, "You can still go to college, just work harder. You're the smart one, right? Figure it out." That line, it snapped something inside me. The part that was still begging, still hoping, it just died. What was left was cold, hard, and calculating. They didn't think I was smart enough to figure this out. They thought I was just going to roll over, cry, and let my future evaporate. They were about to find out exactly how smart I could be. I didn't argue anymore. I didn't cry. I packed a small bag, booked a last-minute flight to Cabo, using my own meager savings from my summer job, and I left without a word. They thought the story ended there. They thought I was gone, dealing with my selfish tantrum. But oh, how wrong they were. I didn't have a plan, exactly. I just knew I couldn't be in that house another second. And I knew there was one person who might still have a heart in all of this. Chloe. I got to Cabo a day before my family. I knew where they were staying. I'd seen the brochures enough times, memorized every luxurious detail that had been bought with my money. I didn't have to look for long. Chloe was there, by the pool, looking slightly overwhelmed by the sheer scale of the wedding prep. My heart was pounding in my throat. This was it. The moment of truth, if I was wrong about her. If she knew, or worse, if she didn't care. I would be truly alone, but I had to know. I had to know if she was as naive as I hoped, or as complicit as I feared. Chloe. My voice sounded strange, even to my own ears. She looked up, surprised to see me. "Sarah, what are you doing here early? You're not supposed to be here until tomorrow." She looked genuinely happy to see me, which was a start. "We need to talk," I said. "Somewhere private." We went to her room. A suite that probably cost more per night than a semester of my tuition. The irony was almost too much to bear. I sat on the edge of the bed, she took a chair. The silence was heavy. "What is it, sweetie?" she asked, her brow furrowed with concern. "You look terrible." "I am terrible," I began, my voice thick, "because I have to tell you something that's going to ruin everything. And I'm so sorry. But I can't be part of this lie anymore." And then, I told her about the empty bank account, about my parents' confession, about Mark's entitlement. I didn't hold anything back. I showed her my phone, the bank statement that said 0. I showed her an email I'd finally received from the financial aid office, a chilling confirmation that without the fund, my dream school was out of reach. The expression on her face as I talked, it went from confusion to disbelief, to horror, and finally to cold, clear-eyed rage. A kind of rage that surprised me. "You're joking," she said, her voice dropping to a whisper. "This isn't real. This is some kind of twisted pre-wedding prank, right?" "No," I said. "It's as real as this room. It's as real as the fact that my parents just told me to get loans so your fiancé could have his perfect wedding." "And he knew?" she asked. Her voice was trembling now, but not with sadness, with anger. "He knew he was stealing from his own sister." "Yes," I said, "he did." Chloe stood up. She looked like she was in shock, but it was a shock that was quickly calcifying into a resolve I hadn't seen in her before. "My family is not wealthy, Sarah. My parents scraped together what they could to contribute, thinking this was a joint effort between your family and Mark's success. He told us your parents were managing some investments. He lied. He lied about everything." "I know," I said, "and I'm so sorry, Chloe, but I didn't want to start your new life on a foundation of a theft and a lie." She was quiet for a long time. She walked to the window, looking out over the beautiful, stolen view. Then she turned to me, and her face was a mask of cold fury. "I'm not a prop for his fantasy, Sarah. I'm not his perfect bride whose happiness is built on the destruction of yours. He didn't just lie to me. He used you. He used his own family. He used me to steal from his own sister." "I'm sorry, Chloe," was all I could say. My own anger was starting to be replaced by a terrifying uncertainty. What would she do? "Don't be," she said. "You did the right thing, now I have to do mine." The transformation in Chloe in that moment was profound. The slightly quiet, eager-to-please girl I knew was gone. In her place was a woman who was done being manipulated. She picked up her phone. "I need to call my parents," she said. "And then, I have some calls to make to the venue managers." I didn't see Chloe for the next 24 hours. My family arrived, a hurricane of excitement and demands. My parents, seeing me, just sighed and said, "So you decided to come after all." They didn't mention the money. Not once. They acted like it had never happened. Their capacity for denial was truly staggering. Mark was equally oblivious, treating the entire resort like his own personal kingdom. He didn't even notice something was wrong until the day of the wedding. The day of the special day arrived. The beach was set with hundreds of white roses. A string quartet was warming up. My brother was in a white suit, looking like he owned the world. But as the time of the ceremony approached, something was wrong. The bride wasn't ready. The wedding planner was pacing, her headset crackling with frantic messages. And then, the phone calls started. The first hint of trouble was the way Mark's face just deflated. He went from a confident, happy groom to a man who'd just seen a ghost. He fumbled for his phone, his hand trembling. Then he looked at my parents. The look on his face, a mix of pure terror and dawning comprehension. It's a look I'll never forget. And then, the announcement came. Not from Mark, not from my parents, but from a very, very angry resort manager. Ladies and gentlemen, his voice was clipped and professional, but the strain was obvious. We regret to inform you that the wedding of Chloe and Mark has been cancelled at the request of the bride. The bride, Miss Chloe Bennett, has left the resort and is not returning. Furthermore, due to a massive, documented case of financial fraud on the part of the groom and his party, the wedding costs are being invalidated. The crowd erupted into a sea of confused murmurs. The music stopped. My mom let out a sound that wasn't quite a scream, wasn't quite a gasp. It was the sound of her entire world, her carefully constructed fantasy, imploding. My father grabbed the manager's arm. "What are you talking about? Fraud, what is this nonsense?" The manager didn't even flinch. "Mr. Evans, we have been provided with documentation, provided by Miss Bennett herself, that details the systematic, unauthorized diversion of a private trust fund intended for your other daughter, Sarah, who is present to cover these wedding expenses. Miss Bennett has declared this entire contract void, citing moral turpitude and fraud on the part of her intended husband. The police are on their way to take a statement." The words fraud, trust fund, Sarah. They hung in the air like smoke. Every single guest turned to look at me, at my parents, at Mark. My dad's face went white, then red, and then he did the only thing he knew how to do. He pointed a shaking finger at me. You did this, you little ungrateful." He couldn't even finish the sentence. He was too consumed by his own rage and panic. "No, Dad," I said. My voice was calm, which was surprising, even to me. "You did this, you and Mark. You stole my future. All I did was show Chloe the kind of family she was really marrying into. All I did was tell the truth. You ruined your brother's life," my mom screamed, her voice shrill and desperate. "Do you know how much this cost?" $50,000, I said. "I know exactly how much it cost. It was 50,000 reasons why you decided I didn't matter. It was my future." Mark just stood there. He didn't say a word. The arrogance, the smug entitlement. It was all gone, replaced by a kind of numb, dead-eyed shock. He looked smaller, less charismatic, just a thief who'd been caught. The manager cleared his throat. "As part of our standard policy regarding confirmed fraud, the cancellation fee has been applied. However, since Miss Bennett was the primary contracting party and she has declared this contract void due to the groom's fraudulent actions, the balance of the funds will be refunded, less the cancellation fee. And according to Miss Bennett's express, legal directive," he turned directly to me, "the remaining funds are to be transferred directly to your account, Miss Sarah, as they were stolen from you." The transfer notification popped up on my phone just minutes later. It wasn't the full 50,000. The cancellation fees had eaten into it, but it was over $40,000. A large, beautiful, and absolutely mine number. I'd lost some money to the theft and to get here, but I had a future again. The police arrived. The entire scene was a total mess. My parents, once so confident, were now being questioned by Mexican police, their faces pale and strained. Mark was taken away in handcuffs, his white suit now stained and rumpled. The guests were left to fend for themselves, a mixture of shock and gossip spreading through the resort. Chloe, as it turns out, was already on a flight home, with her parents and all of their belonging. She didn't want to see Mark. She didn't want to see my parents. She just wanted to be as far away from the wreckage as possible. She'd even called my grandparents' lawyer, who had been in charge of the trust, to make sure I had everything I needed. She wasn't my savior, not really. She was just a woman of integrity who couldn't be a part of my family's lies. I didn't stay to watch the end. I packed my bag, went to the lobby, and booked the first flight out. As I waited for my ride to the airport, I saw my parents. They were arguing, pointing fingers. My father was blaming my mother, she was blaming him, and they were both, ultimately, blaming me. They didn't see the theft as the problem. They saw the consequence of the theft, the cancellation, the humiliation, the police as the only problem. Their world was ruined, not by their own actions, but by mine, the selfish daughter who'd refused to just take out loans. I arrived back home to an empty, silent house. My parents were stuck in Mexico for a few more days, dealing with the legal mess and the logistical nightmare of bringing Mark home without his passport. I didn't care. I went straight to my room, opened my acceptance packet for my dream school, and for the first time in weeks, I didn't feel a cold knot of dread in my stomach. I felt hope. The $40,000+ was more than enough to pay for my first year, and the rest was a safety net I could use to take out minimal loans. My grandparents' gift had been stolen and then returned, a little smaller, a little heavier with the weight of my family's betrayal, but it was mine again. The fallout was inevitable. When my parents finally made it back, the silence in the house was deafening. There were no more family dinners, no more talk about family first, just a strained, uncomfortable politeness laced with a bitter undercurrent of resentment. Mark was out on bail, facing charges of financial fraud and theft. He was a shell of his former self, his confidence evaporated, his golden child status shattered. My parents tried, a few times, to talk about it. They tried to guilt me, to make me feel responsible for destroying our family and ruining Mark's life. They said I should have spoken to them, instead of running to Chloe. Speak to you? I'd ask, my voice a dead flat calm. The people who looked me in the eye and told me to get loans, while you spent my grandparents' life savings on a beach party. What would we have spoken about, exactly? How to best sacrifice my life for Mark's? They never had an answer. They'd just turn away, the weight of their own choices pressing down on them. They couldn't see that they were the architects of their own destruction. They could only see me as the person who'd kicked over their house of cards. I started university a few weeks later. The campus was huge and exciting, a constant buzz of energy that was the exact opposite of the silent, resentful house I'd left behind. My first few classes were amazing, a blur of new knowledge and brilliant minds. For the first time, I felt like I belonged. Like I was finally on my path, not the one my family had tried to dictate for me. Mark's court date came and went. He got probation and a massive fine, along with a criminal record that would haunt him for the rest of his life. His perfect wedding, his carefully curated image of success, it was all gone, replaced by the ugly reality of his own entitlement and theft. My parents were financially crippled, the cost of the aborted wedding and Mark's legal fees erasing any savings they had. They were the ones taking out loans now, struggling to make ends meet in the wreck of the life they'd built on a foundation of lies. Looking back, I don't feel happy, I don't feel victorious, I just feel free. A free that was bought at a terrible price, with the price of my trust, my relationship with my family, and my innocent belief that family meant safety and love. But it's a free I'll protect with everything I have. This experience taught me a hard lesson. It taught me that sometimes, the people who love you the most are also the people who can hurt you the deepest. That family is not a magic word that excuses selfishness, theft, and a complete disregard for your happiness. And that sometimes, the only way to save your future is to have the courage to walk away from the people who are trying to burn it down. So, to anyone else out there who is feeling like I did, trapped, betrayed, and being told that your dreams don't matter because someone else's convenience is more important, hear this: it does matter. You matter. Your future is not a currency to be spent on someone else's happiness, and you are smart enough, strong enough, and brave enough to figure it out. My $50,000 is gone. A little over 40,000 came back. But the real value, the real lesson, that's something no one can ever steal from me. Thanks for listening to my story.